Going back to the beginning of chapter 4, unit 4, factoring out the greatest common factor. They want us to factor this by factoring out the greatest common factor. So what is the GCF here? Everybody agree? 8x squared. Okay, the biggest number I can undistribute from all those is an 8. And the biggest power of x I can undistribute is an x squared. Okay, so if we want to see what's left over, then we could just divide each of these terms by 8x squared, right? Okay, what are we going to get here? If I divide 8x to the 4th by 8x squared, what do we get? Just x squared. Yeah, the 8's cancel, don't they? So if we look at this, the 8's cancel, and it looks like I can cancel 2 of the powers of x, right? So I just end up with an x squared. How about here? Negative 24x cubed divided by 8x squared. Negative 3x, good. And then last, 40x squared divided by 8x squared. And we can see here the x squares just cancel, don't they? So what do I get? 5. All right. And that is our answer. Right there. Okay, good? Give me thumbs. How we doing? That good? All right. Factor this as the difference of two squares. All right. So if we're going to use the difference of squares pattern, let's quickly remind ourselves about that one. That's a squared minus b squared equals what? How's difference of squares factor? Okay, a minus b times a plus b. There it is. So can we make our stuff look like a difference of squares? Something squared minus something squared. What would the first something be on this one? Let's see. What do we think here? Araya, what do you get? First one would be 5x, okay. And then 64, that's obviously just 8 squared, right? So then what's our pattern going to be, Persephone, on this? How's that going to factor? Five x minus 8 times plus 8. That's it, right? That's it. So the first thing that's being squared, the 5x, that's taking the place of our a in our pattern. And the second thing that's being squared, the 8, takes the place of the b, and we just follow our pattern. That's it. Okay, so there's our answer. Factor completely. Okay, so what do we always try to do first? Every time when we're factoring something. What are we doing, Lily, first? Greatest common factor. Perfect. Okay, so can we factor out a GCF here? What's the biggest thing I can undistribute from those two terms? 4. Yeah, I can't take out any variables because this one doesn't have any, right? So if I undistribute a 4, what's left behind? So 4 times what is 4v squared? V squared, yeah. And then 4 times what is 256? 64. Okay, so that's good. There's one step. We factored it a little bit. Could we go further with the blue factor? How do we want to think of that 64? There we go. We want to think of that as an 8 squared. So then I've got a v squared minus an 8 squared. And so my answer, I've already got my 4 out front. But this v squared minus 64, or v squared minus 8 squared, breaks up into what, Kyler? There you go. V minus 8, v plus 8. We got it. Okay, good? Give me thumbs. Up, down, sideways. How we doing? All right. All right. Factor the expression. So these are really pretty simple, aren't they? These trinomials. If they factor, and A is equal to 1, these either work pretty easily or they don't. So if I'm going to factor this, I build my template. What goes there and there? X. Okay. Now I've got to find magic numbers, right? My magic numbers. Call them M and N. What do they have to multiply to? What's their product equal? Negative 45. And what's their sum equal to? Negative 12. So what would the signs be if they multiply to a negative? Negative, positive, and they add to a negative, so the negative must be bigger. What would those numbers be that multiply to negative 45 and add to negative 12? Yeah, there you go. Negative 15 and positive 3, and that's it. Okay, no biggie. Good. Okay, this one may be a little tougher, right? So can we undistribute anything? We always want to try. Is there anything I could undistribute? No, nothing. So we're a little bit stuck on this one then. What do we have to do? What's our strategy for something like this? Okay, yeah, we're going to have to go slip and slide, aren't we? Now, hopefully, our goal is that this is going to split up into 2 factors, right? But to get there, we're going to have to use slip and slide. So first step is slip and slide. As you already said, I'm going to take the A and slip it to the end and multiply by C, right? So first step is going to be x squared plus 4x minus, that'd be 60, right? And then what do we want to do? So we built this basic trinomial. Now what? What's next, Owen? What do I do? Split them up. Good. So we're going to factor this into using magic numbers, right? So the magic numbers in this case have to multiply to what? Negative 60. And add to 4. So what's that mean? Multiply to a negative, add to a positive. Yeah, good. I'm going to get big positive, small negative, and they would be 10 and 6, wouldn't they? 10 and negative 6, right? 10 times negative 6 is negative 60. 10 plus negative 6 is 4. Good. Okay, next step. What do we do next with that? We can't forget this part. Oh, good. Okay, whatever the number is that I slipped, so A, I'm going to divide each of my magic numbers by that. Just the magic numbers though, right? Not the whole factor, just the magic numbers. Okay, what's next, Marie? What am I doing next on this one? What do I have to do to those fractions? Okay, meaning what, everybody? What am I? You got to simplify or reduce the fractions. Okay, good. So next step, reduce fractions. So that's going to become x plus, what's 10/15, everybody? 2/3. And 6/15. 2/5. I could divide each by 3, couldn't I? And what's my last step here? Okay, good. I'm going to slide. After I simplify fractions, if I still have a fraction there, then I'm going to slide the denominator up front like so, and that's going to give me my final answer, which is 3x plus 2 times 5x minus 2. Okay? That's a little bit of a process, isn't it? Give me thumbs on that. Is that you still good with that? It's been a while since we did it. Okay, good. All right, so there's our answer for that one. Okay, this is super easy. You just got to make sure you remember what you're doing here. Super easy. Most of the work's already done. Solve. Verify any results by checking, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so what have I got here? I've got an equation set equal to 0, and it's already factored. What are the solutions going to be? What are they going to be? Not 0. Positive 1. Okay, there we go. Good. So we're going to get our solutions are going to be x equals 1 or what? X equals -9. And the reason that's happening is because of the zero product property, right? Which just means if I'm going to end up getting things that multiply to 0, the only way that can happen is when I multiply by 0. So either the left factor has to equal 0 or the right factor has to equal 0 if they multiply to 0. So we just look for the values of x that make those things happen, okay? That's the zero product property. All right. Oh, give me thumbs on that one. How we doing? Okay. All right. So additional step is required here. If I'm going to solve this equation, what's the first thing I've got to do to solve this equation, Alexander? What do you think? Good. I've got to set it equal to 0. I'm going to move everything to the left side or the right side. Everybody, just point for me. I'm going left, right? Because I want a positive number of x squareds. So everything's getting bumped left. That's going to give me x squared. I'm going to have to subtract that 5x to the left side and subtract that 14 to the left side. Okay, good. We got it into standard form. What is next here, Veronica? What do I got to do? Okay, find magic number. So I'm factoring. Is that what you're saying? You're not okay. Not sure. Not sure. Okay, Dylan, help her out. No, I don't want to add 14 because I want to get it set equal to 0, which I did. Right, Naomi? What's going on? Say it again. Don't know. Can he? Split it up by factoring, right? So remember if I'm solving an equation, quadratic equation by factoring, what am I doing? First step is I got to set it equal to 0, right? And now I've got to see if I can break this up into a product of factors that are equal to 0. And then I know that I can find the solutions by just knowing that either the left factor has to be 0 or the right factor has to be 0. That's the zero product property. So we find the values of x that makes that happen. So when we factor this guy, oh my goodness, we need some magic numbers. What do they have to multiply to? -14. And they have to add to -5, right? Okay. Well, what are those numbers? -7, +2. All right, so then now we got to find solutions. So Marie, what are my solutions going to be? What's going to be the solution that goes with that factor? +7, good. That's the value of x that's going to make the first factor equal to 0, so the product is 0. Or second one, -2. Okay. On a test, how could we check to see if we got it right? Plug them in to the original equation and make sure that they make it work, right? Make the left side equal to the right side. Okay, there's another one. We'll skip that. It's just like it. Okay, how about this one? It's already set equal to 0. What do you think, Perry? What do I need to do first, maybe? Say it again. Greatest common factor. Good. Always try to find greatest common factor. So what could I undistribute, everybody? 5x. Okay, good. So we can factor out 5x, and what's left behind? Yeah, if I do that, right. So then we just ask ourselves, 5x times what is 5x squared? X. And 5x times what is 10x? 2, right? Okay, so let's see here. Treasure, what are going to be my solutions then? By the zero product property, what's the value of x that would make the blue factor 0? -2. Good. So there's one solution. What's the factor of x that's going to make 5x equal 0, Andre? 0. There it is. My two solutions, 0 or -2. Okay. All right. Okay, now we're just on to some simplifying square root stuff. This is pretty recent, right? Let's see, Peyton, what's that first one going to be? -3. Don't get fooled into thinking this is no solution or no real number because there's a negative sign, because the negative is outside the fraction. That's okay, right? That's not a problem. Next one. How about this guy? Well, the 2's already outside, but I've got to deal with the 125, don't I? Okay, Veronica, we got to see if we can simplify the square root of 125. So we need to do couples go out, singles stay in. So help me out factoring 125. Divide by 5. Okay, so we can do 25 times 5, and then 25 breaks up into 5 and 5. All right, so then our answer, yeah, we already have a 2 out front, but we've got to take this part of it and simplify that, right? So here's our prime factors, 5 times 5 times 5. Well, look, there's a couple of 5s and a leftover single 5, right? Couples go out, so we get a 5 outside, singles stay in, we get a 5 inside. And then what do I do with that original 2? Multiply by the outside number, right? So 2 times 5 is 10 times the square root of 5. Done. Okay. How about this one? No tents in the basement. What do I have to do to simplify this one? Okay, going to multiply top and bottom by the square root of 7. What's that going to give us on the bottom? 7. Yep. And we know that because anytime we multiply a square root times itself, it just undoes the square root. So bottom, I get a 7. Top, I get, good. I've got 2 inside numbers being multiplied. So inside the square root, I get a 35. And that's it. I can't simplify the square root of 35. There's no couples when I factor 35, right? Okay. And I think, oh, we got just 2 more. Okay. How about this one? Solve the following equation by the square root method. So this is one where we got to always pause and think. Now we're starting to get into stuff where there's not just one way to do things anymore. By the end of chapter 4, we're going to have at least 3, maybe 4 ways of solving quadratic equations. You just got to pick the best one. What's the best way to solve this quadratic equation? Yeah, I'm going to isolate x, aren't I? How come? Because I can point to a single x, right? Anytime I can point to a single x, I can isolate it by using inverse operations. And outside of parentheses, the first thing I see on this one is that exponent, right? So the first thing I would do then is undo the exponent by square rooting both sides, which is going to cancel the exponent. Remember, you're making a mistake. If I'm isolating x, every step should be canceling something from the variable side of the equation. If you're not canceling something, you made a mistake, right? So we cancel the exponent. All right, now we got to be a little bit careful with this. That's going to give us 5x minus 1 on the left side. What are we going to get on the right side? Square root of 26. But what are we forgetting that's really important? Plus or minus. Yep, anytime I square root both sides, I have to include that plus or minus, right? Okay, next step, Persephone. Next two steps. What am I going to do? Add 1. Where do I put the plus 1 on the right side? Front of the plus or minus. All right, so we're going to add 1 in front of the plus or minus, so those guys cancel. And then we divide by 5. Good. So we've got 5x equals 1 plus or minus the square root of 26. Last step, divide by 5. And we got it. We isolated x. So those are our two solutions. If they ask for separate solutions, make sure you read the directions. If they ask for separate solutions, then you just have to do one with the plus and one with the minus. If they don't, I actually think you can put in plus or minus if they don't say separate the two, right? Is that true? Okay. All right, last one for today. What are we doing here? What's our strategy? Okay, we're going to eventually square root. We're going to isolate, aren't we? We can point to a single x. So we just need to go inverse operations to isolate the x. So yeah, first we'd have add or subtract outside of parentheses. Well, there are no parentheses, right? So first step is add 36 to both sides. And I get to cancel, right? So I get 25x squared equals 36. Abby, what's next? Not quite. What can I do first? Divide. Good, right? If I work my way up, is there anything to get that x by itself? Do I need to multiply or divide? Yeah, I got to divide, don't I? Got to divide by 25. So these guys cancel. And now I get x squared equals 36 over 25. So finally, what do we get up to? Exponent. Yep. So last step, square root both sides. That cancels the squared, and we got it. X by itself equals 6 over 5. Okay, what do I need to include? Plus or minus, because I square rooted both sides. So there are my two solutions. Okay, give me thumbs. Okay, all right. That's it for like 96 or 97% of the test. There's a few bonus questions at the end. I don't know if you guys can decide tomorrow if you want to go through these as a group or not. I included essentially all of the bonus questions that could be on the test we could go through. Or plan B, I guess you guys can decide. I could also maybe just make a little video where I go through and solve these that you could watch on your. I mean, I guess I want you to use your time to the best, right? You can decide which one you want to do, and either you will do it in class or I'll make a little video and you can watch it if you want to or when you want to. Okay, you decide. Think about it.